Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today I am on 8values.github.io, and I'm about to take the 8values political test. Yeah, one more month, one more test I decided to take. Um, it's not necessarily, it's partly because of curiosity, just to see what it's made up of and get it done with. Partly because there is one thing that really the one thing that really sets 8values apart from others is summarized in this sentence right here. But let's get through the rest of the paragraph first. What is 8values? 8values is, in essence, a political quiz that attempts to assign percentages for 8 different political values. You will be presented with, not by, a statement, and then you will answer with your opinion on the statement from strongly agree to strongly disagree, with each answer slightly affecting your scores. And now the money shot. At the end of the quiz, your answers will be compared to the maximum possible for each value, thus giving you a percentage. Okay, actually, PolitiScales also does that, and with more dualities, but whatever. Answer honestly. There are 70 questions. What are the 8values? Well, there are 4 independent axes, and each has 2 opposing values assigned to them. They are, I'll just I'll just pause so you can screenshot this or pause and then read for yourselves. But I find these are pretty much what you would expect actually. On the diplomatic scale, you have nation and globe. On the civil scale, you have liberty and authority. On the societal scale, you have tradition and progress. You could also put culture here, arguably. What is somewhat more surprising is that the economic scale opposes equality to markets, i.e. the idea that markets are somehow intrinsically going to distribute funds or currency or whatever you use to fuel your economy in a way that doesn't further equality. Even though that is not necessarily the case, because it depends on how said values and how said funds enter the market in the first place, but that's a separate question altogether. Anyway, another thing I actually wanted to say, what's the closest match mean at the bottom of the score? What does the who abbreviates what does with what's? Seriously. Anyway, in addition to matching you to the 8values, the quiz also attempts to match you to a political ideology. This is actually the main reason why I wanted to do this test, because you maybe already have some idea of what my political ideology is, because I've taken both the political compass and the PolitiScales test. But I want to see what the most accurate label is, or maybe what this particular somewhat popular political quiz thinks my I want to see what this political quiz thinks my ideological match really is. This is a work in progress and is much less accurate than the values and axes, so don't take it too seriously. Aw, man. If you disagree with your assigned ideology, send us an email, la la la. And if we don't, well, constructive criticism doesn't really matter. So again, these are the 8values. These are the axes on which they are judged. So 70 questions to go through. That should take me about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes. Let's see. Start. You'll be presented with a series of statements. For each one, click the button with your opinion on it. Got it. I'll also try to provide some commentary, something that really motivates or explains why why I think those values are, why I take on those values. Okay, hold up a bit. Dry throat because I don't know. Anyway. Got it. Let's start. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. This one is a tricky one because well, there is some level of historical precedent one could think of with totalitarian governments, but truth be told, governments are uh, governments are to some extent beholden to their populace in the same way corporations aren't exactly beholden to their workers. And also think about this: oppression by corporations isn't just oppression by corporations, because corporations don't exist in a vacuum. They also exist within a legal framework that allows them to oppress. So this also has a bit of this. Then again, governments might just have more resources than corporations overall, but that just means what potential a government has to be oppressive, whereas corporations, let's just say, more actively actualize their potential. So overall, I'm gonna have to say agree. Also, I'm gonna try to keep neutral or unsure answers as to a minimum, ideally zero. Anyway, it is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Well, I'm gonna have to say yes, because otherwise, what's preventing someone from what's preventing, for example, a chocolate maker from just selling you poison chocolate? Oh, that you won't be able to buy from them later? Yeah, who cares? They have your money now. It's an extreme example, I'll agree, but there are plenty of examples of various producers cutting corners in order to make more money, and those cut corners eventually end up having a whole slew of other unpleasant consequences. And also, if they can prove that, also if they can get people to manufacture evidence according to which they haven't cut any corners, they will do it. So I have to say, strongly agree. The freer the market is the freer the people. That depends on how the market is configured, but for the most part, the answer is no. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. How do you define a balanced budget? That's the problem here. Also, ensuring welfare for all citizens is what a government is supposed to do. It is there because the citizenry of a certain nation has certain things that are too large to take care of by themselves, and maintaining a budget is one of the ways through which this welfare or this well-being is ensured. An equivalent an equivalent to the statement would be: it is more important to make sure that your car has a fuel tank than it is to make sure that it can work. Like, it can work on half a tank, just saying. So for the most part, I'm gonna have to say, I just disagree. Public funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it to the market. Strongly agree, and we have decades of cases that prove that. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. Okay, this is actually a very good one, but I'm not sure local production is really encouraged through tariffs. You're basically just you're it makes while it does make local products cheaper than it would be otherwise, it doesn't also mean that the local products themselves uh, will be of higher or even comparable quality. So so in that sense, you might just take the best option available and make it worse with tariffs. It's not as clear cut as the statement is really trying to make it. So so that's why I have to say disagree. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs. You could have at least tried to be subtle. This is question 7 and you're already going this way. uh, overall though, let's see. Agree or strongly agree? Uh, I'm gonna have to just say agree, because you can also be coerced into what your ability actually is, and that doesn't actually work. But there will be people who will think that's how it works. So yeah, just agree. It would be best if social programs were abolished in favor of private charities. Bullshit. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. I have no problem with that. Even if I were rich, I'd gladly give it away. I don't want to live. I. It's not about living. It's not about living within your means. It's about living. It's about using just as much as you need. Because keep in mind, we're also facing an ecological crisis. That is also something to consider. So I'd be so I'd even if I were rich, like I don't know, uh, movie star rich, I'd be happy giving most of my money away to charity and still living in like a, I don't know, two bedroom somewhere. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. Strongly disagree, and in fact it pretty much harms the competitive mechanisms that allow for product quality and overall market improvements in typical capitalist thought. So therefore, strongly disagree. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. Hmm. With roads, I would agree. Electricity is a little bit more uh, interesting. I'll say publicly owned, but it can be uh, privately maintained. So, but when it comes to other stuff, hmm, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with yeah, I agree. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. Uh, economy having economy pulled out of it via hoarding by the richest people in within it is an actual threat to the economy. So I have to say disagree. There are some forms of government intervention that I agree can be harmful, but the ones that aren't pretty much outnumber them. And also the threats that private entities can provide to an can pose to an economy are substantial as well. So disagree. Those with a greater ability to pay should receive better healthcare. Those with a greater ability to pay do not get sicker, and therefore do not exhibit higher levels of morbidity or dangerous illnesses, and therefore have no reason to receive better healthcare. So strongly disagree. Quality education is a right for all people. Agree. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. Actually, yeah. Uh, Strongly agree. I I do think all or most companies should be owned cooperatively and follow procedures that are agreed upon by the workers. So yeah, strongly agree. The United Nations should be abolished. Okay, this one is actually somewhat more interesting. 16. Well, it's taken you a while, but you found something that's worth more of a talk. There have been some that sparked discussion so far, but none like this. The United Nations should be abolished. Well, you could argue that the United Nations is ineffective in its current form. Does that mean it should be abolished? I'll say no. I'll say it still provides some level of useful diplomatic service at least. It at least convinces people that, hey, maybe working together is better than bombing the crap out of each other. So I'm gonna say disagree. Not strongly disagree, just disagree. Maybe maybe some level of reform and more level of investment through, I don't know, activities or more dedicated diplomatic and military committees. For example, I'd be fine with the United Nations actually having uh, its own permanent standing army made up of volunteers from each country. Who controls it and how it is maintained? That's something that is to be considered, but it is not something that is outlandish on its face. So overall, disagree. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. Well, I don't know. Military action is how you get colonies, and do you need colonies in order to protect your nation? What are you protecting it from if you get colonies? Poverty? That's not a good not a good enough excuse. You can also alleviate poverty by spending in education, for example, or or in diplomacy to get more people to find you interesting and want to work with you. So And so no, the answer is uh, maybe not often, but it is necessary. So agree or disagree? I'm gonna say disagree because again there are more ways to protect a nation than just throw guns at a problem. I support regional unions such as the European Union. I very much agree with that. It promotes peaceful cooperation within a region, and also it allows for the for how do I put it, diversity of ideas, and allows for the free movement of ideas and concepts and developments, and that is something I very much support. Strongly agree. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. What is sovereignty in this case? What is national is quite easy. It's pertaining to the nation, and the nation is whoever happens to live within uh, within the confines of certain lines on a map. That's easy enough to follow. But sovereignty, does that just mean? I guess that means making your own decisions. But what does it mean to make your own decision? Does it mean break international treaties? Should you be allowed to break international treaties in order to maintain national sovereignty? I think that is something that we need to concern ourselves. And then should you act mad if whatever if whatever treaty you broke doesn't give you the same benefits it would have given you otherwise? I will say the answer is no, and I'll say that if you don't realize that, you're stupid. Cough Brexit, cough. Overall, while I support the idea of a nation being independent, you really need to. There are tons of caveats that come to this that can be tagged onto this question. So for this reason, I'm gonna have to go neutral or unsure. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. A united world government would also be more susceptible to corruption, regrettably. That is the main reason we haven't had one yet. Because trust me, there have been plenty of people who have at least tried to put such a thing in place. Overall, I would like the idea of such a thing happening, but I'm not sure if all the differences that would need to be overcome can be overcome. So if a united world government were to be in effect tomorrow, it would fail spectacularly within the next, I don't know, 5, 10, 30 years at most. If, however, it occurs 100 years from now, once we've overcome all the things that prevent a united world government from being a functioning entity, then I think I'd agree with that. So for that reason, I'm not going to say strongly agree. I'm just going to say agree. It is more important to retain peaceful relations than to further our strength. Our strength is peaceful relations. Counterpoint. So I'm going to have to say I don't like the opposition that this question is framing. It is somewhat too obvious, especially when you remember the diplomatic axis of this quiz. But overall, I'm gonna have to say agree. Words do not need to be justified to other countries. Bullshit. There needs to be some level of justification in order to really prove that you're not just doing this because you're a greedy asshole. So, strongly disagree. Military spending is a waste of money. Just light disagree. No, not strongly disagree. Some level of military spending is necessary in order to ensure safety, and also maybe just military R&D, or in case of emergency, you already have a solid logistical network that is specifically meant to work in situations of crisis. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to say disagree. International aid is a waste of money. Strongly disagree here. Because remember what I said. Remember what I said earlier. Regional unions are a good idea. This is one of the ways in which it is a good idea. International aid, making sure that everyone uh, is is at a similar enough level and can work effectively with you, as in provide reciprocal support. And one of the ways to do that is international aid. So therefore, calling it a waste is something I strongly disagree with. My nation is great. It's fine. Disagree. Research should be conducted on an international scale. Depends on the research. Some research is beneficial, but for example, if you're looking solely at how one particular town develops in one particular area, the only reason it would need to go international if you're trying to compare it to others, and your research might not require it to be compared to others. So overall, I don't know. I'm not gonna say disagree because there are fields of research where an international scale would benefit it, but still, sorry about that. I'm gonna go with. I'm not gonna go strongly agree. I'm just gonna go with agree. I might as well go. I might as well go neutral here, but overall, I think agree fits my idea better, especially when you consider the uh, how vast certain research fields can be. Governments should be accountable to the international community. I strongly agree to this. And in fact, if there were a way to make the United Nations demote certain presidents, I might agree to that. Depends on who does the demoting. So overall, I'm gonna have to say, okay, maybe not strongly agree, but still agree. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. Strongly disagree, because you can use violence defensively, and that is something that BLM protesters have found to be a necessity, really. Also, various protests against authoritarian governments did require violence, did were attempted to be put down with violence, and in which case I don't think you can fault anyone for trying to defend themselves. If we're talking about proactively causing violence, that that is a different question. But even then, I have to default to what I think JFK said: people who make peaceful peaceful demonstrations impossible make violent ones inevitable. Also, Nelson Mandela also had to deal with stuff like this. So overall, while I don't think you should uh, rob a bank to demonstrate how unfair the economically capitalist system you exist in is, there are still positions where violence can be acceptable within a protest. So for that reason, I'm just gonna say disagree. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. I would support that, but if it's spread through violence or through legal coercion, such as people of this particular religion pay less taxes, that's still bullshit. You kind of have to educate people, and by that I mean properly educate, not propaganda, not Sunday schools, uh, not creation science or some other bullshit like that. So overall, I'm gonna have to say uh, disagree or no. I'm gonna go strongly disagree. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. Well, what are the values of our nation? Also, also there are people like me who don't have dual citizenship but are vying for dual citizenship. Uh, what are those? What are those people supposed to do? What nation are they? What nation are they supposed to be thinking of? You know, and also the values a nation reaches as the values that are important to it or to the people or to the people that live there are the values that those people have found necessary for their livelihoods, whatever that in whatever form that takes. So they might not agree to the values of another country, or the values of another country might be inadequate entirely. So yeah, for that reason, I'm gonna have to say, well, I do think some of the values of the of my of the nations I've lived in and spent most of my time in are are pretty good. I'm not sure they should all be stretched as stretched or spread as far as possible. So I don't know. Another neutral here. It is very important to maintain law and order. True as that may be, what about authoritarian governments? They can just justify whatever as law and order. You need some kind of foundation for that law and order. And if that foundation is broken, then any law and order they will try to implement will be broken as well. For that reason, I'm gonna have to say disagree. The general populace makes poor decisions. Well, I don't know. The general populace has kept us out of wars more effectively than feudal monarchies have. So you could argue that is due to more international connections within the market. But even then, those connections to a global market weren't done by people outside of the general populace. So overall, I'm gonna have to say, well, some ideas are very stupid, and and conspiracy theories are spread to a not particularly welcome degree. Overall, I'm gonna have to disagree with this. Physician-assisted suicide should be legal. I'm gonna say yeah. If you really libertarians also often say that you should do whatever you please with your life, and as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And this doesn't really harm uh, anyone else. It could just be any given medical procedure, and any kind of medical procedure, or almost any kind of medical procedure, has an associated risk of death. So death being the actual reason, the actual desired end result, might be more interesting. Might be something that not more interesting. Might be is not that far fetched, really. One should consider the potential side effects of whatever the physician uses to assist suicide. That adds a little bit of a complicating factor to the equation. But overall, I'm gonna have to say, okay, maybe not strongly agree, but just a general agree. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. What are some civil liberties in this case? And also, what are acts of terrorism? This question is very tricky. It is very tricky, and it is unhelpfully vague. So I can't really say anything about it. The right to privacy. Do you mean right to privacy? I say yeah. Could be something worth noting. Then again, I also have to consider the mechanisms through which for which the sacrifice of civil liberties occurs, and also how many people actually would actually need to go through it, and also what would it take to actually discourage acts of terrorism? Maybe not, because there are two different kinds of protection. There is stoppage, and then there is prevention. So what would it take? What is enough? What is sufficient in order to really what is sufficient in order to protect acts of terrorism? And can the actions that are deemed as sufficient protection necessarily require the sacrificing of civil liberties? It's too vague. So it's too vague, and it has proven to be not particularly helpful. So I'm gonna have to say disagree here. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. Same question as before. It's almost the same question as before, and I'm pretty much going to give the same answer as before. Disagree. The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. I'll say the state has its purpose, and you can be free, or have your liberty even with the existence of a state. That the state itself somehow provides not provides, but is a threat to your liberty. That is actually quite a tricky question. Overall, though, I have this. My answer is a disagree. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. Bullshit. Your country can be very wrong. We already talked about authoritarian governments, or governments that commit abuses against their people, or allow abuses to be committed against their people. So, strongly disagree. All authority should be questioned. Yes, strongly agree. If that authority manages to stand up to questioning, i.e., prove that everything it does is justified, all the more power to them. If they don't, well, that's why they prevent being questioned. So strongly agree. Hierarchical state is best. Depends on how the hierarchy is set up. So as a rule, that is not the case. So disagree. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. This one is a very interesting question. What is the majority opinion? Because we're not just talking about the population majority. We can also talk about who owns the majority of a nation's wealth, for example. Is that a majority, even though numerically it is actually smaller than the rest of the populace? Does that mean whoever controls the majority of the land, etc.? When it comes to majority opinion in the more traditional sense, i.e., what the majority of the populace agrees upon, well, then we're talking about millions of people holding one particular opinion. In that case, it is actually much harder for millions of people to all agree on the wrong answer. So yeah, and does the government still need to follow the majority opinion, even in the rare cases where that majority opinion is wrong? That is actually tricky. But say you don't know what makes that majority opinion wrong. Don't you? You're gonna need to find it out. And if no one can predict it, well then it will just happen to be wrong, and the government will know better. Ideally, so will the people. So I don't know. Put some kind of safety measures in place, and you should be fine. Overall, though, I'm gonna say, yeah. Even if it is wrong. Again, the main situation at play here is that the majority doesn't know that it is wrong. Also, the main problem is we don't know how the majority is defined. I'm gonna go neutral here. Sorry. The stronger the leadership, the better. Is there what defines strong leadership here? That's really the problem. Does it mean someone who shows uh, physical strength, i.e., someone who displays the capability or willingness to um, employ physical strength for violence, or does strong leadership mean uh, how do you best support the population? This is something this question doesn't go into, and given some examples of strong leadership there are around in the world, I'm gonna have to say uh, disagree, because it's not just is within modern political systems. It's not just a leader who is not just a leader who decides and everyone else who follows or not. It's it's everyone else coming up with reasons, and the leader often only being the final decider, if at all, or the one who facilitates a decision from whatever political majority is formed. So overall, overall though, my opinion is still disagree. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Well, it's not just voting. That'll agree upon. It also revolves around who gets to vote, how do they decide what to vote on, how do their votes get cast, and how do their votes get counted. So yeah, for the most part, I'm gonna have to say strongly agree. Environmental regulations are essential. We're in the middle of ecological crisis, so yeah, strongly agree. A question are we? Oh, 44, good. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. A better world comes from adjusting to the factors that influence uh, our environment and population. And automation, science, and technology are just one of these factors that influence the world. What exactly makes it better? But they are not the things that make it better. So disagree. Children should be educated in religious or traditional values. They should know about them, maybe, yes, I might agree with that, but they shouldn't be educated to take those on as their own. So, so overall, I have to say my answer to this is disagree. Traditions are of no value on their own. Traditions. It is said that traditions are uh, answers to questions long forgotten, and it is a pretty reductive statement, but it has proven true in with various opportunities. For example, traditional cures. They have been dismissed by, say, I don't know, the scientific intelligentsia of the 17th through mid 20th century. But more modern research has found that traditional cures actually have a whole slew of benefits that previous intelligentsia did not guess. What's important about traditions is understanding uh, the context from which they come, and therefore how they are valuable for whatever new context people happen to find themselves in. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to go, for this statement at least, with a disagree. Religion should play a role in government. Strongly disagree. Not just because of the idea of separation of church and state, because that is an area with a lot of that is a field with a lot of gray areas. First of all, and second of all, there are plenty of governmental values that do in fact stem from religious values. So they have since been redefined, so they don't have to necessarily be based upon religion. So you can have government implementing religious values in a totally secular way. Uh, but does that mean that the clerical hierarchy needs to decide upon governmental decisions? I have to say the answer to that is No, the religion is just one facet of society among many others. It's like saying corporations should play a role in government, and therefore cutting down all the taxes so that they don't have to pay any, and most money stays to them. Yeah. Overall, strongly disagree. Churches should be taxed the same way other institutions are taxed. Strongly agree with that. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. Strongly agree. It is important that we work as a united world to combat climate change. Strongly agree. Yeah, sorry for the boring streak now. Society was better many years ago than it is now. In what way was it better? I might agree to that, but I might be the only one. Also, you're not saying how necessarily how it is better. Are there certain threats that are more imminent now? Yeah, I'll say so. Uh, does that mean that the society as it was in the past would have been more capable of of combating these threats? Overall, I'm gonna say no. There might be things that society did better years ago or whenever that means. That doesn't mean that it as a whole was better many years ago. So therefore, overall, I'm gonna have to say disagree or strongly disagree. Kind of torn. I'm kind of torn between these two, and it's really just a matter of nuance. But overall, I'm gonna have to say when you say many years ago, you're making the implication of not just decades but centuries ago. And in that case, I'm gonna have to say strongly disagree. It is important that we maintain the traditions of our past. Again, look at what I said about traditions at a previous question. Uh, traditions have their place. Traditions stem from a certain set of social conditions. If that specific set of social conditions has changed, those traditions could become meaningless. So, therefore, I'm gonna have to say, for the most part, disagree. Some might still be worth it, but not all the time. It is important that we think in the long term beyond our lifespans. The problem with this statement is uh, people have a hard time thinking long term, when it comes to events that occur within their lifespans. When it comes to events happening beyond that, you're just gonna get a freaking mess. So if you really want to, you could still do that. You could still conceive of uh, uh, long-term plans that go beyond the lifespan, but you really need to sift them through. But you really need to sift them through a lot of um, academic probation and a lot of so to speak. So a lot of trial and error and peer review and maybe even peer extension and peer improvement. It's not just the scientists can say we need to do this for in order to have a great life in order to do a great life in 500 years. You need a whole slew of scientists to agree and improve upon that, and then not and then you know find the best way to implement that. And also not a lot of people can do that, and it might just take away resources necessary to solve more immediate problems. It's a it's kind of a stretch, but still, it's something that could happen. Overall, though, my answer is still agree. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Ideally, there should be no disconnect between those two. So overall, I'm gonna have to say. Also, it depends on what you're doing with your reason. Why does reason oppose maintaining our culture in this particular setting? This statement isn't really explained enough. So for that reason, well, I think uh, reason is more effective than tradition when it comes to maintaining a culture, especially in shifting times. It is not. It is not always the most important thing. So It is, in fact, I think Spock himself said it in the Undiscovered Country. Logic is only the beginning of wisdom. So therefore, just agree. Drug use should be legalized or decriminalized. I'm kind of I'm kind of iffy on that because there are certain drugs that are definitely dangerous, and not just in the way that they compel you to do dangerous things, but they are a danger and a menace in and of themselves. I think certain uh, maybe not legalized, but decriminalized definitely. Treat and therefore because drug use is a medical condition and you should treat it as a medical condition, and people are less likely to seek treatment for a medical condition if said medical condition was illegal. Like if you criminalized cancer, bull, bullshit as that may be, it's still something that could happen. Or if you decriminalize cancer, you'll see a lot more people dying from cancer, for instance. Or if you criminalize getting a fracture, you'll get a lot of people dying from fractures. you know. So overall, I'm gonna have to agree. Just agree, not strongly agree. Same-sex marriages should be legal. Yep. No cultures are superior to others. Yep. Sex outside of marriage is immoral. Bullshit. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. Our culture also becomes their culture because they because they become part of the nation. They become accepted parts of the nation. So so quote unquote our culture will change in order to reflect that. And you know what? That is fine. That is that is exactly how culture in general and also history operates. Overall, so for that reason, overall, my overall answer would be disagree. There are certain aspects that of their lives that might no longer be implementable within whatever their new country is, but I don't think those are really the majority, as a lot of migrant fearmongers are implying. So therefore, disagree. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. Strongly disagree. Her body, her choice. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those without a valid reason. The problem herein becomes what counts as a valid reason. Does does shooting guns at a range count as a valid reason? Does self-defense count as a valid reason, even though in most self-defense scenarios guns are practically useless? Does it count? Does it count, for example, when it comes to policemen? Do you need, or police personnel? And I don't just mean people who go out in the field. I can also mean whoever just sits in the precinct all day and does a desk job. Should that person, be stripped of whatever right towards gun ownership they have? So, yeah, there's a lot of leeway here with this statement of without a valid reason. So overall, I'm gonna have to say, normally I would say strongly agree, but if I were to look at it more pragmatically, the question is the actual answer to the statement is agree. I support single-payer universal healthcare. Strongly agree. Prostitution should be illegal. Strongly disagree. Maintaining family values is essential. What are family values? Is it the values of your family? Is it the values that make family rearing easier or more practical? Also, what are the values that would actually lead to that? Because let me tell you, telling gay people to get back in the closet does not help. Does not lead to more families being founded. Just saying. Overall though, this is more of a conversation starter than an actual disputable statement. So for that reason, mm, strongly disagree because I know how this statement is generally used. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. Surprisingly, I will agree to that because there are certain there are certain improvements that uh, that don't exactly improve that don't exactly improve anything at all. And you really need to look at them pragmatically and sift through what would work before you seek to actually put it in place. But still, it is important to try to form a more perfect union, as I think the Declaration of Independence puts it, and also to try to improve the lives of your citizenry if you are a politician. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to say agree. Genetic modification is a force for good, even on humans. Yeah, can't agree with that. Like there are that's a Pandora's box that becomes very tricky because you have to wonder who gets to have the genetic modifications. Like does does everybody get them? Do you get them if you do you get them by need? Do you pay for them? Um, there are lots of ways this thing can go horribly wrong, not just in and of itself, but also in how it's put into put into play. Therefore, I'm gonna have to say disagree. We should open our borders to immigration. Fine by me. Yeah, okay. There is a risk of higher criminality, but that can happen. But that could happen, uh, regardless of that can happen anyway. But that could even happen through natural closed border population growth because more people will inevitably lead to more crime. Even if you were to lower the crime rate, depend if and if the even if you were to lower the crime rate, because the crime rate could be lowered at a lower rate than you raise the population numbers, and therefore you could still have a higher crime. So even closing borders doesn't really solve all of crime. Overall, though, the immigration process is I'm fine with it. Governments should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. Hmm, this is kind of an iffy one. I'm gonna have to say, oh, there's a wedding. There's a wedding passing by. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't know if it matters. Anyway, should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. Not exactly. The the primary responsibility of any government representative is, I think, towards the people uh, they are representing. Does that mean they should only be does that mean they should only be as concerned as not to interfere with with internal problems? Well, no, because there are cases where being concerned about foreigners actually does bring an improvement to the lives of whoever you are representing, or in other words, to your own citizens. Then that's like where stuff like trade deals, and international aid uh, comes into play. But but if there's a famine halfway around the world, that is not necessarily something that concerns you. There's a famine halfway around the world, but also there is a potential of one inside your own borders. Then your job as a government should be to take care of the it should be to take care of the food situation in your country before you deal with the food situation anywhere else. So uh, put down the fire in your own house before you try to put out your neighbor, so to speak. But uh, overall, I agree. All people, uh, actually, wait, yeah, just agree. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. Well, by equally, do you mean stuff like do you mean stuff like the same pronouns? Do you mean stuff like should receive similar gifts, or should be or or other stuff? You know how conservatives nowadays tend to say that color blindness is the actual goal, and that can in turn lead to people ignoring the difficulties that have been set apart, that have been that are unique to, uh, and therefore, okay, let me restart that. You know how conservatives say that colorblindness other forms of uh, or other forms of blindness should be the goal of society, and therefore and therefore ignoring what the left wingers uh, say about that particular approach, that it leads to you ignoring uh, what factors of the experiences of various people have had upon them, thereby thereby making life uh, harder for people by supposedly making it easier. Yeah, that's kind of my attitude to it. I hope I've been able to explain myself properly. Um, so yeah, this is a good ideal, but when there have been previous factors that have altered in some way how people of different cultures or sexualities have been treated, then you can't just say, "Whoops, my bad." Sorry about that. Another slip of water. Again, the point is, um, if there have been points in the, if there have been issues of the past that have prevented people of differing cultures and sexualities to be treated equally, you can't just say, "Whoops, my bad," and then start with equal treatment from then on, because people of different cultures and sexualities will still have um, a bridge they'll have to climb over, and that other people don't. So you have to compensate for that bridge as well. Overall, I'm gonna have to say equal before the law, equal before the state, equal before uh, governance. But in various other factors, they will for the sake of the principles, for the sake of being equal in front of government representation, need certain require certain aids, and I think these aids would go against the statement. So for that reason, I'm gonna go disagree or neutral. I'm gonna say neutral. Okay, how many questions left? Oh, last one. Good. It is important that we further my group's goals above all others. Well, what is my group? What if I say my group is whatever all others is supposed to mean? Does that mean that we should further the goals of everyone else, and above the goals of it, above the goals of everyone else, or above the goals of no one? Like, how does that work? If we're going by if we're going by nation, then the answer is no. If we go by faith, the answer is no. So yeah, and if we go by a few other factors, the answer will still end up being, for the most part, no. So I'm gonna have to say strongly disagree. Let's see what I got. Okay, economic axis, socialist equality. Okay, diplomatic axis, internationalist. Okay, there's some for nation because reasons. Civil axis, more libertarian than authoritarian. Good, or actually expected. Societal axis, very progressive. So I'm not just progressive, I'm very progressive. Finally, it's funny that I'm not very socialist, but whatever. Also, when it comes to tests or quizzes like this one, I kind of realized something just before starting filming. You know how they say that the only actual reality show is the first ever reality show, and pretty much every other reality show that comes after that embellishes its content in some way? Well, I think it's the same with taking political tests. The only actual political test that accurately reflects your political stance is is the first one you ever take. Every test that you take afterwards is in some way biased by the results of the first test, or rather by your reflections on your results on the first test. I I try to keep that as low as possible here, and I try to uh, represent the ideas I've had uh, in in ways that are as that are as uh, and that are as supportive of the actual goals of a political entity as I would see them as possible. So with that out of the way, we have my scores here, and we've already seen a closest match: libertarian socialism. Ideological matching is a work in progress and much less accurate. I don't know. It came up with something that's pretty accurate to me. Yeah, I could copy this, and in fact, I just might. And back. Ah, I was looking forward to see if it had other suggestions for ideological matches other than libertarian socialism. But I guess I need more. I'll need to take tests that look more into a specific set of values rather than just this rather broad framework. Anyway, I've uh, I've taken this and I've got this result. I hope you're happy with it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please give it a like and maybe even share it wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to comment on whatever I said in this video, then go right ahead. The comment section is widely available. And if you want to see when my next video drops, then please subscribe. Ideally, also ring the bell in order for YouTube to notify you. Ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will want. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.